Danny Henry talks his big win at UFC London and who he wants next. UFC Liverpool, who does Darren Till fight? And Brendan Dorman breaks down the decline in submissions in MMA.
Are you fucking kidding me, America? Fuck you and your dumb fight, smart cunt. This is what the fucking fight of the year. Wow. This was it, Joe Rogan.
Welcome along to obviously Fight Talk episode 106. This is Not O'Keefe and I am joined, as always, by Robert Palin.
Where's Joey Diaz? Somewhere around hiding.
Special guest on the show this week.
Yeah, might pop up later.
Talking about special guests, they're here every week. Shout out to Fight Store Ireland, the Fighters' Choice, MMAmix.com, and to feelsupreme.co.uk. Go check out the website. Get all your mushroom, your energy, synergy, all that crazy stuff, all your CBD oils. And at the end, use the code FIGHTTALK at the checkout. That'll get you 10% off. You're welcome. 106, Rob. UFC London went down this weekend. So we'll be looking and delving into that. But the run of the show, later on, we'll be talking with Brendan Dorman. We're not going to be recapping the fights. We're going to be reading Reddit. We're also going to be talking about the reaction to UFC in Liverpool. Yeah. They dumped us for Liverpool.
Yeah.
We got dumped.
How's it feel?
Oh, bringing me back to my childhood. UFC London, we'll be looking more so at the fallout. We'll talk a little bit about the fights. But look, people, it's Wednesday. So you've heard all the recaps. So let's look at the fallout. And then we'll be joined by one of the big victors on the night, making a second return to obviously Fight Talk. We'll be joined.
It's fourth return, technically.
Well, yeah, technically, yeah. Danny Henry will be joining us after his first round submission victory at UFC London. And we will be looking at, obviously, Fight Talk's quick fire news. All the big stories in this week's news right here on obviously Fight Talk. Obviously Fight Talk, quick fire news, 2 minutes on the clock. We have 2 minutes to talk about a subject that we read out, just like this. The last UFC heavyweight title contender, Francis Ngannou, is in the news and has options for his next fight. Both Mark Hunt and Derek Lewis expressed their interest in fighting the Predator. But if Ngannou gets his wish, it will be Brock Lesnar that he fights. And the MMA hour, Francis pleaded with the WWE superstar. We need you to put the fun in this division. I need you to give me that fucking fight. I've been waiting for a long time. Out of the three of them, Rob, for me, that's possibly the worst fight for Francis Ngannou.
I agree. Lesnar is a poor fight. Now, that's not saying that I don't think that Francis Ngannou can win that fight, because it's one of them fights that we talk about all the time where the weakness is the strength of both sides. Yeah. So if it says in the feet Francis Ngannou is going to be like worlds ahead of Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar doesn't really like to get hit as far as we've seen. Maybe that's fixed since he's recovered a little bit in the stomach. But yeah, that's a bad fight. I think on the face of things, that's probably the worst fight of the three. The best fight, I think, for me, the one that I'd like to see is Lewis.
Yeah, it's something that Ngannou talked about, people going on about me wrestling. They really over-exaggerated how bad it was and stuff. No, Francis, they really didn't. No. And if you look at Brock Lesnar, he literally, he's like something from, like, I don't know, an animated Viking thing or something. Like he spears his opponents. He dives through them with his takedowns, and I just don't see, as big as Francis Ngannou is, I just don't see him stopping them Brock takedowns. If you can stop them, yeah, you're going to tire them out and you're going to beat them up in the feet, but I just don't see him stopping them. And it's a weird call out, because I know there's the big thing that Brock's WWE contract is running down and he's nearly finished, but he's not even contracted to the promotion. So you and Derek Lewis have had a bit of back and forth. Derek Lewis gave you stick after you got beaten your last fight. So surely that's a wrong you want to right and shut him up. So for me, I agree with you. Derek Lewis has to be the fight. And two of them throw bombs, and I just think it'd be a fun fight in the heavyweight division. And as Francis says, you need to put the fun in that division. I think that fight puts the fun in that division. Yeah,
I like it too, and I think that although again Lewis can win that fight, I would favour Francis even after his kind of poor performance. I think you still need to protect Francis in a way, because he still can be a commodity in that division. Yes. Up next, it's We have to go to it. It's a story that won't go away, so we can't avoid it. Floyd Mayweather told TMZ that he has already begun applying for his MMA license. UFC champ Tyron Woodley said he would train Floyd Mayweather for his debut and said he could do it in 2.5 months. Mayweather said it could be a little longer, around 6 to 8 months. One thing I will note as well before we press play on this is that Conor McGregor has opened as a 10-1 favourite if the fight were to happen in MMA.
If I was Conor McGregor, I'd be insulted by them odds.
Yeah, should be at least 50-1.
Multiplied by 50. Yeah, look, it's not gone away. Like, there was a lot of talk of Floyd against CM Punk. If that was the fight, I'm favouring Floyd. He's a boxer.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But, like, I don't know. This is ugly. Madness. And it's, like, look, if he's going to do it, it's right. But it's like, I'm sick of talking about Floyd Mayweather with MMA. And all the things, but if he does it, man, you gotta give him credit. If you have the balls to do it, you gotta give him credit. Like, he's going to go in there now, instantly. He's the best boxer in MMA if he goes in.
Yeah, of course.
But people aren't going to want to box with him. They're going to pick him up, put him on his ass, and beat the shit out of him, or kick the fucking legs off them little spaghetti legs. It's different, man. It's just. We've given every comparison in the world.
Yeah,
that you can give
I
with
don't
this.
think there's even point of talking about how
he beat CM Punk though.
Yeah, how much of a deficit he'd have. I just think, in terms of will it happen, I just can't see Floyd Mayweather putting himself in a position to get beat like that, just based on his boxing record, based on who he's fought.
But has he not built himself up? Has he not gone on that much now about it? That if he doesn't do it, people will go, hey, Floyd.
He doesn't care though. He doesn't care. He said that he'd fight a lot of boxers, and he's fought guys near the end of their career, maybe a little bit too early in, say, Canelo's case. So he's managed his career really, really well, and it'd just be a weird, strange plot twist if he said, all right, I'm going to go do MMA. You know, it's just a strange one that probably won't happen.
Michael Jordan going and playing baseball.
Yeah, but it's Floyd Mayweather. It's not Michael Jordan. It's Floyd Mayweather, who has been conservative in the way he's fought, conservative in the way he's managed his career.
You can't. I think the best way of saying it, you can't fight the way Floyd fights in MMA.
Yeah, and the only reason we're bringing this up is because McGregor versus Mayweather happened in boxing. If it didn't happen, this would just be dismissed.
Laugh it off. It's finally happening. Joe Rogan and UFC newcomer Jimmy Smith are set to call the action at UFC 223. Next month's event will feature the commentary debut of a 3-man bout featuring longtime UFC broadcaster Joe Rogan, recent signee Smith, and play-by-play John Anik. I'm delighted with it. By the way, Jimmy Rogan and Anik is, for me, man, Anik, I slagged him for years about his genes, but Anik's a great play-by-play now.
Just refresh people's memory, because that sound like, if I didn't listen, he just goes, I slagged him forever about his genes.
He was weird. Anik was on, what was it called, MMA Live, wasn't it? Yeah. And I really liked him as the host of that. But then when he signed with the UFC, he was doing all these Q&As and stuff, and he wore these jeans that were like ironed to a crisp. The way you would iron like a tuxedo suit pant, and it just irritating. I'm like, who the fuck has jeans so well pressed? Like John Anik, like, what is the shit with that? It looks like a grandpa going like in an old folks home, and he puts on his jeans, and his old little lady wife irons them. That's not to say women should be doing all the ironing, by the way, so don't jump down my throat for that one. Just saying, you know, the older generation, that's what they've done, and it just used to annoy me. But I have to say, his play-by-play, I'm a big fan of Anik, big fan of Rogan, and obviously we're big fans here of Jimmy Smith. But I nearly want a 4-man boot. I want DC just to shout Doug Rose, Doug Rose. But yeah, I'm really excited to hear them, and I think Jimmy Smith and Rogan will work great together. They're very different, and this is great. It can finally lay to rest the people that go, oh, Jimmy Smith's just another version of Rogan.
Wouldn't it be hilarious if they did go on the boot and you couldn't tell the difference?
No, it wouldn't be.
I'm just joking. Like,
I know
it actually happens.
No,
like,
I know,
I'm
but
joking.
No,
they sound completely different. They have different cadence,
everything.
But
cadence, I like that word.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great. I can't wait to see what they're like in the boot. You know, a good commentary team can make a production way better.
Yeah,
it can also make it worse as well.
What's the guy's name that was commentating? Is it Warren? What was his name?
Who?
I want to say
Joe Warren. Joe Warren. Yeah.
Like, you look at that Russian promotion, that show was terrible. Apart from Fedor,
that guy
fantastic.
just.
But I hope Daniel Cormier keeps to his promise, and if Tug Rose wins, Russ runs up to the mic and shouts Tug Rose.
Up next, I'm going to make a mess of this name, and I should let you do this one. Irish favourite Peter Queally, not that one.
Say the name, and
I knew you were going to say that. Announced on Twitter that he'll be main event in Fight Nights Global 88 against 24-3 David Karakatran.
Karatarian,
whatever. That guy he's 24-3, and the event will take place in Armenia, David's hometown. That's a surprise with Queally, isn't it?
Yeah.
On May 18th. Possibly on Fight Pass. These events usually are on Fight Pass, aren't they?
Yeah, Peter Queally does what Peter Queally does. He is going into enemy territory, literally going into your man's back garden to fight him. That's just something like we said it when Peter was fighting here. We're like, you don't normally see Peter Queally fight in Dublin or Ireland. Yeah. Like I think his last fights in Ireland were on Cage Warriors. Was it Cage Warriors against
yes,
McColgan,
John McColgan,
and then he fought Decky Dalton on Cage Legacy 1 in Drogheda TLT Theatre.
Had to go with the accent.
I love, man, Mr. Cage Legacy here. But yeah, this is more up Peter Queally's where he goes into absolute enemy territory and takes on the local favourite. But very, just by looking at the poster.
Somebody said on our Facebook page when we posted this up, it looked like David, whatever his second name is, I can't pronounce it, I'm sorry. Kakatarian was eating out of Brock Lesnar's lunchbox.
Yeah. It does. And it looked like Brock didn't catch him. It looked like he finished the lunchbox.
He's jacked.
But yeah, Peter Queally, I'd love to see Peter fight more in Ireland, but look, this is what he does. He travels the world. He
probably answers the phone. They're like, have a fight against this guy. Where is it? Yeah. Is it in his hometown? No.
Yeah.
Right, fuck
off. I don't want that.
Put that down.
Yeah, I want to fight this guy in front of his man and dad and make him weep. I just beat the shit out of your son. That should be his name. That's showstopper. Peter, I just beat the shit out of your son in front of you, Queally.
Yeah, and the other guy's name should be David Brock Lesnar's lunchbox Karakatran. Probably.
But yeah, fair play Peter Queally again, doing what he does, going into enemy territory and taking on the local favourite. Rob,
that's it.
There's no UFC events or Bellator event this weekend.
Yes, I heard.
So this is just weird. A little public service announcement. If you are starved for fights with no UFC, it's not even that. There's plenty of other people. Open your windows.
No Bellator event.
Change the channel. Look for dodgy streams. Plenty of fights happening this weekend. Invicta FC 28 is on Saturday in Salt Lake City. Goes down. One Championship is in Bangkok in Thailand. That's Saturday. For you early risers, that will be about 7 a.m. in the morning.
It's a decent card too. Bibiano Fernandez defends his title.
Cracking Cage Warriors card 92 goes down. Nathaniel Wood making the second defense of his title against Luko Oyovin. And then if you're hey no, look, I live in Ireland now. This is no good to me. You're talking about cards in London, Salt City, Bangkok. It's no good to me. Well, folks, on Saturday night, if you want to take in some boxing, Celtic Clash 5 goes down this weekend in Drimna in the GAA Good Council Hall. It's McAfee taking on O'Donovan. They probably had fight of the year last year in Irish boxing, an absolute cracker of a fight. The rematch is on. If you look at my Facebook, you'll see an interview. They done a sit-down interview with another. It was quite good. It was excellent. They called it Round Zero, so which was really good. I liked it. It was good. And you'll catch himself in the ring announcing the show. But yeah, a cracking boxing card. Then if you Saturday night as well, if you live up in the north of Ireland, or if you want to drive up in Belfast, not that too far away, a cracking Muay Thai show. Deliverance is on. It's really not. It's
not that too far away.
That's
not English.
But Deliverance is on, Muay Thai show in Belfast. And then on Sunday, one of the best promotions in the UK and Ireland, Clan Wars 31 in Belfast. McCorson takes on Alexander O'Sullivan in the main. I think that still is the main event. I'm on duty that day as well with Phil Campbell.
This is your busy.
But I am a busy man this weekend. But there you go, folks. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different shows. Open the blinds. It's not only Bellator and UFC. There's plenty of other fights out there. But yeah, if you're local, you're living in Ireland, there's 3 shows that you can attend. Not an excuse. Best of luck to Nathaniel Wood, former guest, defending his title. And then, of course, one championship and Invicta taking place this weekend. Rob asked me, what does the Invicta card look like? Rob, what did I say?
Just all women.
It's just all women fighting, Rob. And here we are, 106, and we still haven't had a female guest.
Farrell Connolly.
Yeah, we want a woman guest. Just because people are talking.
Yeah.
But let's keep talking and let's move it on. UFC London happened this weekend. One of the standout performances was from a former guest.
Clue. It's a male.
It's a male. It's a male. He's from Scotland. He had what many thought was going to be submission of the night. That didn't happen.
Well, they're not doing submission of the night fight. They're doing just performance of the night.
Performance of the night.
Granted,
should have been a performance of the night. Absolutely stunning victory within the first minute of the first round. We are delighted to be joined once again by Danny Henry. So here is the velvet sound of Scottish and Irish people talking to one another. The Americans will be going, what is going on?
Give me a
here?
translation.
But you can turn it's actually turn the subs on because it's hilarious what sometimes it thinks what I'm saying.
Why?
I don't know. It just doesn't say what I'm saying. And I imagine
me?
you're perfect. I don't know. It must be just a Northsider must have made it. But it'd be interesting to see what I'm saying, but also interesting to see what Danny Henry's saying. So let's get him on. 0-2 now in the UFC. We're delighted. As I said, here's Danny Henry. So welcome back to obviously Fight Talk. So UFC London went down on Saturday night, and one of the standout performances of the night now joins us, making a second appearance both on obviously Fight Talk and a second appearance in the UFC on Saturday night as well.
Very good.
We're now joined by Danny Henry. So Danny, welcome back to obviously Fight Talk.
Thanks lads, thanks for having me.
Danny, I'm going to start off with a really weird question because, you know, you said it, so we're going to direct it to you. In your post-fight interview with BT Sports, your plan was to drink as many pints of beer as possible and not pee the bed. So how many pints of beer did you have, and did you pee the bed?
I think I got about 10 pints of Blue Moon in, and I managed not to pee the bed.
That's an achievement.
Successful weekend all round.
Yeah, that's an achievement.
That's probably the best result of the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Danny, let's talk about the fight though. In all seriousness, you were going in against Hakeem, who a lot of people knew Dawodu was coming in with a striking pedigree, and a lot of people were excited, and in a way underestimating Danny Henry, not for the first time, I think. But talk us through it. What was the game plan going in there? Was it to test, because you sort of pawed the jab out as a rangefinder and then hit the home run right hand to land the shot? But just talk us through the sequence because we can let you go from the second the bell rang.
Yeah, like I watched his fights and stuff, and obviously I've checked his striking pedigree out. I knew he was a really good striker, Muay Thai world champion, like legit striker. But from what I could see, everybody showed him far too much respect on the feet, like far too much. He's walked everybody down and just managed to kill their cardio with pressure. And so my goal straight off the bat for my fight was to go out and let him know I was there, and land something big and get him to respect my power. And it just so happened the first shot that landed put him down.
Did that take you by surprise somewhat?
A little, but I know I hit really hard, so not overly. It's just I just didn't expect it to happen so fast.
In the grappling exchange in there, it was quite quick, but there was a grappling exchange there. You were looking for the guillotine, and you did change up the grips a couple of times. Was he stronger in the grappling, even though it didn't last that long, just to scramble out of the first couple of attempts than you thought?
No, he's as strong as I expected. Like, again, based on his previous fights and stuff, he's fought really good, legit fighters. That Russian Magomedov guy that he fought is legit. He fought Steven Seiler, and he took him down. He couldn't hold him down. I knew he was going to be super explosive and strong. So, no, and he done the right thing. He rolled the right ways. He done the right escapes. I just managed to hold him.
The one thing you did say after the fight, and Noel did bring it up, was you were talking about being an underdog going into fights, and you said that's something that happens quite a lot. But is there something is that beneficial in a certain way? Is it a bit of an advantage sometimes when people aren't really looking at you to go in there and beat somebody really quickly or anything like that? Is there an advantage?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I thrive on it. I had a brief chat with John Gooden a couple of days before, and he was asking me about like the odds and stuff and if they bothered me, and I'm just like, they don't bother me the slightest. I think the first day the odds came out, I was almost 4-1.
Wow.
It's just like, where are they getting these? Where are they getting these stats from? Like, I'm tried and tested, and they're still slinging these mad odds about. So it just encourages me more, to be honest with you.
Why do you think it is that you're getting underestimated?
Don't know. I think it's because I'm just like a pasty, skinny Scotsman.
I don't think our family will mind you being the underdog all the time, especially with the bookies. I'd say it was a good Paddy's weekend in the Henry household if they were all down in the local bookies.
They're all lumping on.
One thing that didn't happen, and it surprised a lot of people, you spoke about it yourself, you didn't get a fight of the night bonus for the finish. Did that surprise you, or did you think a couple of the, we know Paul Craig had the sort of home run submission?
Yeah, I thought I had one in the bag, lads, if I'm honest with you. I thought I deserved one, but you know, that's out of my control. I can't really argue with them. They make the decisions. Paul Craig was a second away from losing his career, never mind losing that fight.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. It's out of my hands. I can't do anything about it. I would have liked one.
No, for sure. Stevie on the night as well. How did you? It's hard, obviously, seeing a teammate, but what did you think of that?
I was gutted for him, like absolutely gutted for him. Thought he not clearly won. It was a close fight, but for me, looking in, there was two fighters in that cage. There was a positive fighter and a negative fighter, and Stevie was a positive fighter. He was cutting off the cage, constantly trying to engage, trying to submit, trying to strike, doing everything he could to turn that into a fight. And I felt like Kajan was doing everything to avoid the fight. Like, it wasn't like he was going in there and being elusive and slipping shots and scoring. He was literally slipping shots and running. It was like there was no... Super frustrating to watch. Absolutely devastating for Stevie. The implications of poor judging makes a massive difference to his life. He's got 3 kids to support, and obviously think his win check, what he deserved. That, if you ask me, and everybody I've spoke to about it, it's all the same opinion. So you really need to do something for judging.
That's we had Cody Stamen on the show 2 weeks ago when we were speaking about judging. Cody thought it might be an idea to add an additional 2 more judges. So for a decision, you're going to need 3 judges on your side. Do you think that could be something that could resolve having an extra 2 judges?
Yeah, like I don't know. There's been loads of chat about it, but the more the better. I was listening to Joe Rogan podcast a little while ago, and he was talking about 10 judges.
Yeah,
they don't even need to be there. They could be like at satellite locations where they're not being affected by the crowd.
Yeah.
Or by, like guys getting home advantage. The crowd's a bit louder for this guy or that guy. Like educated MMA coaches that could score effectively and fairly, and you're definitely going to get more decisions right based on more decision makers. So yeah, definitely 2 more. Definitely, hopefully steer towards better decisions. 10 might be a shout. It might be the best way to do it.
I'm sure
these boxing judges aren't the way to do it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Is that something that does worry you going into fights? Does that play through your mind that, you know, if I go to a decision, maybe the decision isn't in the best hands?
I think it more and more so it is, because not really for me, because I haven't experienced that firsthand. I've been fortunate enough, the fights that I've won by decision, I've won pretty clearly, and the ones that I've lost, I'll have to hold my hands up and say I've lost pretty clearly. So as much as I haven't been a victim of it yet, it is concerning, and especially with the UFC and the stakes. What's at stake? Like, you're talking about not just the money, but the implications it can have on somebody's career, the sponsorship potential, their negotiating power with the UFC later down the line to get a deal. It's just really, I don't think they realise how much a terrible decision like that can make on a guy.
What I find weird about it, Danny, for me, the weirdest thing, and I'm sure it's the same in Scotland, when you go to like a regional show here, the 3 judges sitting around a cage are coaches or former fighters. But yet when we get to the biggest stage like Bellator, UFC, EFC, these are like boxing judges or whatever they're put by the state. So how can we have it right at the regional circuit, but yet at the biggest stage we have Adelaide Board judging a fight?
That's a scary thing, because the regional circuit isn't really governed, is it?
No.
The legal. Maybe it is in Ireland.
No, it is now where I'm at. Yeah.
It is in Ireland, right? But they've obviously got the right people in tow, you know. But the states obviously haven't got it governed. They need to just use the facilities that they've got at hand, I guess, and the boxing stuff as close as it's going to be, and the commissions and all the stuff that they need to use don't seem to lend well to MMA, but you need to use them to put the shows on. So your hands are tied, kind of, I guess.
Just on the implications and kind of what you just brought up there, do you find, like, with, say, bonuses, the way they're so high, like somebody like could be on much less of a paycheck and get a bonus and then make so much more money, or else they could win and lose so much money, or they could lose and lose so much money based on a loss? And even the likes of Brad Scott, who had to fall out of his fight because another fighter failed to make weight. Like, there's so many implications that's out of fighters' control, and I suppose, you know, a loss isn't out of control. But do you think that the win-loss disparity should be that big, as in you make so much if you win and then you lose so much if you do lose? Do you think it should be that big of a gap?
Again, it's a hard one. It's a hard one. It's always been the way, though, isn't it? You know, it's always been the way. You get X amount of show and you get X amount of win, and it definitely encourages you to win. I can tell you that. But yeah, I suppose it's a good incentive for the guys to go out there and get the win, and the bonus is an even better incentive to go out there and get the finish. So I suppose from a warrior's point of view, they've got right on, because every time I fight, I'm going out there to get a win, and I'm certainly trying to put my name in the hat for a bonus too.
Let's get back to that, the good talk of winning. Obviously, your UFC debut against Timur was a short notice fight. You got on short notice. You fought at lightweight. How beneficial for you this time round was it, coming in a featherweight, your more natural weight that you fight at, having the full camp behind, really being able to prepare? How big of an advantage was that?
Night and day for me. I didn't really tell anybody at the time, but before the Glasgow show, I broke my foot 3 places about 8 weeks out from UFC Glasgow, and I'd stopped campaigning. If you go back and look at my Twitter or whatever, about 8 weeks out, I stopped campaigning to get on the UFC because I thought I'd just get by. I was drinking and walking. I had this big Velcro boot on for 5 weeks, and then 3 weeks out from the event, the UFC called. I've still got that boot on. It's in Glasgow, and I'm like, the pressure is on to sign. You know, it's like, take this fight, you sign. So I just had to sign. I hadn't been training at all. Before that, my rib. Before that, I had surgery on my elbow. I barely got any training in 2000 for that fight. So yeah, for this one, full camp, I was super fit. I was ready to go. 15 minutes of absolute momentum at this kid, because he was so fit and strong. I just had to throw the bus up. I knew I was going to go in there and put a pace on him, try to slow him down. So I trained like an absolute demon for this one.
Do you have any injuries coming out of the fight?
Coming out of it?
Out of this fight?
No, I've got a cold though.
It's probably from all the beer.
Yeah, it's not bad.
It's a hangover. After the fight, you did mention, of course, the UFC Liverpool card came up, and people asked if you wanted to get on that card. You didn't really say yes or no. You were kind of, well, we'll see what happens. Is that a card you're interested in getting on, the UFC Liverpool card?
Well, I mentioned it to Sean. I seen him in the hotel after the fights, and I said that I was interested in it. And he sort of intimated to me that he's more or less filled it. Okay. And that they're talking about using me in the States next. So it's kind of a positive step in my career if that's the case.
That was something I was going to ask you, because even though that you're from Scotland, you fought in London last. You've done a lot of travelling fighting. You fought in South Africa for a long time. So do you find that fighting abroad doesn't really, it's not really a huge deal?
It makes no odds to me at all. I fight in my back garden if you want. No odds. as soon as that door shuts, first point of contact, it's on.
One question about that, because I know when we spoke to you last, it was just before you signed with the UFC, and you were at the time you were campaigning and to get into the UFC, and it's something we spoke with Jimmy Smith, former Bellator commentator who's now UFC commentator, and we said, you know, from outside looking in, you see how big the UFC is, you know, and you think, wow, it's a mammoth machine and how big of a promotion. Being a part of it, is it bigger than you actually thought?
It's as big as I expected, to be honest. It's as big as I expected.
And what do you find with the fans' reaction? Like, I'm sure your Twitter is blown up now, your Instagram is blown up now, and it just carries more weight, I suppose.
Yeah, like I must have had 1,000 messages since the weekend through over all social media platforms. I don't really use my Twitter and stuff as much as I should, so I'm trying to bolster that a bit now and verify and start pushing myself a bit more.
One thing as well, I'm not too sure if you'll agree with it, is you will agree with it because I remember talking to you about it. EFC, I think a lot of credit has to go to your former promotion, who were happy enough for you to push on for your career. You were their champion, you know what I mean? So I think a lot of credit and the experience. Talk to us about that, how vital was, because EFC, for anyone who doesn't know, when you look at EFC, any of their shows, it's a big production like the UFC. But like, how important and valuable was that experience, and how good were EFC to you to get you to the UFC?
The UFC were brilliant with me. Can't fault them. It's a massive promotion in its own right over in South Africa, and they basically, over there, the EFC is literally the UFC. So if you're talking about MMA in South Africa, you're talking about the UFC. Most of the casual fans in South Africa will watch the UFC. The EFC is the be all and end all for them. So it's a massive organisation there. And it's very similar in a lot of aspects to the UFC. Like, you're there the full week, and you've got your promotional stuff to do, loads of interviews, you're in front of cameras all the time, encouraging you to be, creative and get some hype behind fights, and sell your fights. And it's been great. Exposure's been great. It's probably where I wanted to be.
The generic question, you were asked it after the fight or in the post-fight scrum, but you said you had to have a look at the roster to see who was there, because you're not somebody who watches a lot of MMA, as far as you said. But have you looked at the roster? Is there anybody that sticks out and you said, I'd like to fight that guy?
I've not looked at it yet. I really don't like that Andre Fili. Don't like.
What? Any particular reason why, or?
Nah, I just don't like him.
Is it a nickname? Touchy Feely, is it? Some people have problems with it.
Yeah, I heard about him like taking out his own teeth and stuff, so tougher and all that. But I don't know if it's any truth in it. I just don't like his attitude. I just don't like the guy. I like to crack him.
You want to avenge the loss of Artem Lobov. That's what it is. You want to avenge it for Artem. I have to say, Danny, watching the fight the other night, I was super impressed. It reminded me when you went with the high elbow to finish it. It's a silly thing. I said it to Rob walking into work today. It reminded me of a kid when he's eating a lollipop and he doesn't want to. He just wants to pull the lollipop off the stick. You were that deep in, and it looked that way. It was absolute superb performance. Congratulations to you again. Hopefully a few more blue moons, but then back to training, back stateside. And we'll see Danny the Hatchet Henry in the UFC later in the year, my man. Congratulations.
Thanks very much, guys.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Cheers.
Cheers, man. There you go. Check it out. Danny Henry was on UFC London with. It's absolutely
devastating.
It's one of them that if you look back 2 years and you go, that submission didn't get submission of the night, you'd be like, I want to see the submission that did get submission of the night.
Yeah, it's one of them. It was one. I think I wrote it up on Twitter. It was one of the most devastating guillotines that you'll ever see, because like it was just it was one of them. Like, it was just one of them where like I was watching it, and my brother walked past and he was like, "Oh, is that the UFC?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I had that fight on. It was on the replay, and he just looked at it and he just went, "Ugh." It just was, "Ugh."
The only thing that would have made it worse than what it was if you done a Derek Lewis and looked at the camera as he got in and went, "Oh, April, I'm going deep." Superb finish. But Dawodu, his opponent, he's going to have a huge future as well in the UFC. Absolute skilled fighter. But Danny Henry, unbelievable performance. Speaking of UFC London, let's have a little quick recap.
There were some other fights on the card too.
There was some other fights, but pleasure. Danny Henry, 2-0 in the UFC, 2-0 in OFT. Speaking of UFC London, we're now going to look at a little bit of the fallout. And we're not going to go too recap mad, because let's be honest, we've recorded this a day later than we normally do. So it's Wednesday. So why are you talking about stuff that happened on Saturday, lads? So we're not. We are a bit. But we're gonna look more at the fallout and what's next for the big winners and the big losers, and basically what people are thinking. So why not start at the top, Rob, where I think a lot of people were surprised that Fabricio Verdum not only lost but got finished in this one. Alexander Volkov got it done in the 4th round by devastating finish. But the big one for me is all of a sudden, like, I was looking at this fight when we were talking about this last week. I was like, Verdum will take him down and he'll submit him at some point in the fight, and that's sort of what we said. The longer it goes, he'll get the sub. That didn't work out. Volkov gets the finish and now crazily is ranked, is it crazily or am I underselling it? Is ranked 5th in the world now.
I don't think that's crazy. I think if you beat Verdum, who was probably 3-ish, around there, 3, 4.
I'm not too sure.
I think if you beat Verdum, you're in title contention. I had this, not an argument, but I had a little bit of a discussion on the Facebook page this week on Sunday or Monday. I put up a post about this fight saying that Volkov has now threw himself into the contendership, and Kevin Doyle disagreed. But I think if you beat Fabricio Verdum, who is probably next in line, or who was next in line for a title, who arguably could have got a title fight if Daniel Cormier didn't get it, I think you're definitely in contendership. Am I saying that you're going to beat everybody in the division? No, but I'm saying you're up there now with the contenders. You're going to get a top 5 fight, or if you win that fight, you're probably going to get a title fight. You know, he's up there with it. On the fight itself, not overly crazy impressive from Volkov, but just to get a win over Fabricio Verdum is very, very good.
Do you think, in a way, I want to pose questions. I'm going to play the questionnaire. You're going to be the contestant answering the questions.
Okay.
Do you think that, number one, what did you think of Fabricio's physique? Do you think he looked a bit soft?
He looked a bit soft, but we've seen him fight like that before, and we've seen him win like that before. But I don't know if he underestimated Volkov. It did seem that way. It's hard to get into somebody's head and say, oh, he definitely did that. But just based on his physique and based on the way he fought, it looked like he was coasting at times.
Yeah, coasting. Do you think he almost reverted a little bit back to when he fought Alistair Overeem back in Strikeforce, looking for that type of... And in a way, something that we'll probably be talking about later with Brendan Dorman in and around submissions. Do you think he was too one-dimensional in his attack? That we spoke about Fabricio saying his striking has improved and he's starting to look better on his feet. He's looking more capable on his feet. But Saturday night, it looked like he abandoned ship and went, yeah, look, I can win this fight in the ground, so let's get it there. But
yeah, it was a weird one. It was like he almost regressed in his striking, because he was throwing, like, he always throws this weird shot at the start. You know, he runs across the cage and throws this. He was continuing with that, which is fine, whatever. But it seemed like he didn't have a huge amount of ideas. He was trying a couple of things, they didn't work, and then he reverted back to trying to pull guard. Got a couple of takedowns, which were effective, but you suppose you can look at Volkov and say, if you come against somebody like Stipe, it's not going to look good getting takedown like that. But it just seemed like he regressed in the striking, and most likely he hasn't, but it just seemed that way. Maybe the reach gave him a huge amount of problems, but it seemed like, for me, what the game plan was for Volkov was withstand as much as you can, compete in the striking, don't get submitted early, stay in the fight, and then look for a finish. That's what it seemed like the game plan was, and he did it. It's a great win.
What's next for Volkov? Like, when you look at, I have the rankings here in front of me, Tapology rankings. You Stipe is obviously the champion. Then you Francis Ngannou, who is still number 2 on Tapology. Fabricio, number 3, just beating Fabricio. That's not happening. Alistair Overeem is 4th, but he's scheduled to fight Blades. Yeah. So, really, the only fighters not matched at the moment are Francis Ngannou, who's number 2, and Derek Lewis and Mark Hunt. Yeah,
there's nobody really standing out, is there? There's nobody standing. It wouldn't surprise me if they went for someone like Andre Arlovsky, even though the rankings are a little bit spread out in the rankings. It just wouldn't surprise me because, you know, it looks like they're trying to build Volkov a little bit. And then Andre Arlovsky, if he gets a win over him, that's another big name. So that wouldn't surprise me.
Build him. He's on a 6-fight win streak.
Yeah.
So is a 6-fight win streak not time to give him, like, for example, would you be opposed if Cain Velasquez was coming back that could be the fight to make?
Yeah, that's a good fight. I think that's a very good fight. I don't think Cain should come back and get a title fight.
No,
even though I think
it wouldn't even be good for Cain to come back and get a
no,
title
exactly.
fight.
I think for both, I think for the division it's not right because he hasn't been competing. For Cain Velasquez himself, that's just too much pressure, just too much at once. I just don't think he's gonna look like he did. Now, will he look like he did back in the day when Cain Velasquez was the man at all, like after 1 or 2 fights? Who knows? But definitely on his first fight back, I'd find it difficult to say he'll look like that then. So I like that fight. I think that's a good fight, and I think it's a fight that Volkov would welcome as well. It's a big name.
Yeah, it makes sense. A big name. The rematch that everyone was cribbing and crying about, going, Jesus, the first fight was awful. This is just going to be as bad. Probably turned out to be fight of the night.
Cracker, absolute cracker of a fight. We spoke about this going into the lead up. We said that we thought it looked similar to the first fight. Didn't really, but in points it did, where Jimmy Manuwa did come forward. But I thought that Blachowicz done a much better job of countering, much better job of just throwing more shots, being more active. And it showed. And when he hurt him, I think that really stunned Manuwa. I don't think he really got back into the fight after that as much as he would have hoped to. But really, really good fight. I wouldn't be opposed to the rubber match. I think it'd be another excellent fight. And I think a lot more people would be excited if they done a third fight. But really, really good fight. Yeah, just excellent fight.
So you think the rubber match is the next fight to make, or?
I'm trying to. I don't have the rankings in front of me, but
like Jimmy Manuwa now, like.
I hate going to the rankings.
Yeah,
but
but Jimmy Manuwa is 38 years of age.
Yeah.
Could this have been his fight that? This might have been the fight that, do I keep going? Do I keep pushing on? The fact that he's lost the fight, could be the time to...
You never know, it could be. After the fight, I know that Blachowicz was asked, is the rubber match potentially next? And he said he's all for it. He's not going to refuse. So I think the most logical thing for Manuwa especially is to get that rubber match. For Blachowicz, he could fight anybody there in the top 8, top 10. So... I'm not sure exactly what's next, but I wouldn't be opposed to just doing the rubber match straight away, get it done with. Great fight.
One fight, Rob, that has everybody divided is the Fire Kit, Tom Duquesnoy, Tyrion Ware. I know you've people that are big Duquesnoy fans, the likes of Sean Sheen, of Severe, big Duquesnoy fan. Myself, big Duquesnoy fan. But a lot of people felt that Duquesnoy fans were blinkered a little this week, feeling that Duquesnoy won the fight and won the fight comfortably. Comfortably is probably the wrong way, but scored him and thought there was no controversy.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people talking to me were like they were expecting Ware to get his hand raised.
Yeah, I expected Ware to get his hand raised. I'm a big Duquesnoy fan as well, and of course we've had on the show before his last fight. But I just thought that Ware, again, done similar to what we were saying, where he's always going to stay in your face. He's not going to make it look easy. He's going to make the fight difficult, and you're going to have to score points early. You're going to have your gas tank there. You're going to have to be able to be effective with your strikes, maybe get a couple of takedowns. And unfortunately, Tom Duquesnoy looked similar than he did in the Cody Stamen fight. I don't think he got hit as much than he did in the Cody Stamen fight. His leg kicks look great. But it was just the fact of he comes out kind of as you would expect with the Fire Kid. He comes out on fire in the first round, looks great, and then starts to slow down. And once Tom Duquesnoy slows down, it doesn't seem like his fundamentals is completely there right now to deal with somebody like Ware who's going to be in your face for 3 rounds. Something
we said though last week though, Rob, is that he needs a tough, hard fight. Like we said, this isn't going to be the prettiest Tom Duquesnoy fight. It's going to be a hard fight. We picked him to win, but we said it's going to be a hard fight that will probably do him well in the long run. Do you think that happened on Saturday night?
I think so. I do think so. I think if he went out there and he just finished him really early, I don't think that's great for him because he has had so many of them fights. And like Tom Duquesnoy, if you know his career, you know how he's come up in the regional scene over here and in the UK. You know that he has managed his career pretty well. But I think when you're looking at now his performances so far in the UFC, I think it makes sense why he did manage it that well and why, because I still think that in certain cases or in certain places he doesn't have the skill or at least he doesn't have the cardio or maybe the physicality to compete with some of the other guys. Now, it's not that he was not competitive against Weir. You know, a lot of people do think he won. I thought Weir won the fight, but it's not one of them where I say it's an absolute robbery. It was a close fight.
What's next for Dugamon?
I don't know. Someone at the same level. Don't throw him to the wolves. I don't think. He's still a really young guy. You know, although he has a lot of fights. A lot of them were early stoppages. You know, he got a lot of people out there. So yeah, I think
it's weird, isn't it? Although his hand
close
was raised and a unanimous decision on the judges' scorecards, people are being quite dismissive of Dugamon now, as in, hype is on about this kid.
Yeah,
he's not what he was.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case.
Could that be a good thing for him as well, though? Is that
probably
he'll fly a little under the radar that now that people aren't going, oh, Tom Dugamon was the next best thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, possibly. I don't think that the hype is gone or that he's not going to be a contender or anything like that. I think he has work to do, and I think a lot of people will say that even if you're the biggest Tom Dugamon fan in the world, you have to look at that fight and says, yes, he definitely has work to do. Terrion Weir isn't an absolute world beater. He's tough. He's very, very tough. And those types of fights are always going to be tough for Tom Dugamon. If he can't get somebody out early or if he can't get a huge lead early, sometimes he can struggle. But I don't think the hype is gone. I just think he has some work to do. But I'm still excited to see what he does now later in his career and moving on to the UFC. But yeah, I think, you know, people should temper their expectations of what he can do immediately in the UFC.
Leon Rocky Edwards got a win at 4:59, not the only one on the night to do it. 4:59 of round number 3, but he was winning this fight. Best call out of the night, though, the most intelligent call out of the night. Certain Mr. Till got called out.
Yeah, short, simple, to the point. And I like when they make the call out, and even if there's a second question, they don't answer it, because there has been times when fighters have done a call out or said something kind of
Ben Rothwell stands out to me.
Yeah, promo-ishy, and then gets asked a question, then answers it like straight. Yeah, and it's just like, you ruined it. But that fight makes sense as well. We can talk about that later when we talk about UFC Liverpool. But
how impressed with you, Edwards?
Very impressive as always. He's not the Tom Dugamon type, as in he's not going to be the guy who goes in there and blows somebody out in a round. But he's the type of guy who is good everywhere, and if you give him a chance, he will finish you. And it was an excellent performance. Just like his
5-fight win streak now as well.
5-fight win streak. Just like his brother had a really, really good performance a couple of a week or so ago. Excellent performance, and I'm excited to see if they do that fight. There's not many people kind of lined up to fight Till. So I think that's a good main event to do it.
Good, and a big step up in the numbers as in ranking wise.
Yeah, it was smart call out.
Now, former guest of the show, unfortunately didn't go his way. Probably the longest UFC wait for a debut probably ever, considering like signed
as
with
in
the
when
UFC.
He signed, probably.
John Phillips was on the end
2
of
years.
a rear naked choke submission to Charles Byrd. What did you think of this?
Yeah, it was just one of those scenarios where Phillips is a striker. That's what he does best, and he never got a chance to strike. And once the takedown come, he was on the defensive, and they were dry, and it was early, and against a really good grappler, and it just finished. It was an impressive performance, but just for Phillips, you know, it's not great for him because there's that huge weight. There was a lot of people talking about him coming into it. I was very excited. I know you were very excited to see Phillips make his debut in the UFC, and he's definitely better than that. But just one of those things.
I think one
of those things.
Personally, I think that the weight to get there, to do it, how he's living, how he's training, you know, and I don't mean that how he's living, how he's training isn't right. What I mean by that is he has been training without the release of a fight. He is a UFC fighter, but he's never put on a UFC, you know what I mean, uniform, the gloves. He spoke about that when he was on with us, that he can't wait to have his name on his Reebok kit, to do all that. So I think the weight was the hardest part, I think, for John Phillips. I do think, you know, you're going to see a different Phillips when he steps back in there for his second fight. And hopefully it's a quick turnaround, that he's not waiting so long. By all accounts, he's injury free after the fight, so hopefully that goes down well. Just a couple of notable shout outs before we move on, Rob. Paul Craig with the absolute home run of a submission. He's put on this planet to kick dick, was his quote with us. But my God, did he lock up that triangle choke. You said that you think there was between 5 to 6 seconds left in the third round of a fight that Paul Craig looked like he was going to be on the end of a defeat, and he pulls off an absolute World Cup winning goal of a submission to get the win.
Yeah, one of the most impressive things, as you kind of pointed out, was that there was probably like 6 seconds left when he threw the triangle up. So for the setup, there was only about 6 seconds left. So by the time that there's a couple of steps in the triangle, by the time he got every step done, he probably done it in about a second and a half. And by the time he actually had it locked up, his opponent tapped in probably about half a second. So it took all but probably 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds to complete the triangle and finish him. It was crazy impressive. He must have some squeeze, and that's after being, beat up for 3 rounds pretty much. It wasn't like the biggest beatdown in the world, but there's a lot of people saying that the last round could have been a 10-8 maybe. Yeah. But just very, 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 very impressive, and his post-fight thing was good as well.
The power,
as it always is.
The power of jiu-jitsu. So that was UFC London. That was the fallout from it.
Just a couple more, because we had a couple of guests on. Stevie Ray and Kajan Johnson. Very, very close fight. Close, yeah. I felt for Stevie Ray because all the stuff that he's gone through with the UFC contract, getting into a really tough fight against a guy in Kajan Johnson or Kajan, I think that's how you say his name. Kajan. Yeah. Against a guy in Kajan Johnson who just seems like a nightmare to fight. Not because he's going to beat you up crazily, but he's just so defensive, and not in a bad way. He's smart. He fights smart, but he's so hard to hit because he keeps moving and moving and moving and moving. So it's difficult. It's difficult to win his decision against him. So I felt for Stevie in that one. And Mark Godbeer on the end of a rear naked choke.
Mark's back in the gym already, wanting the fight again.
That was always going to be a tough fight for him.
I seen him the other day. He's basically saying he wants to get back in there as quick as possible. Obviously had a weird one before this against Walt Harris where he won from DQ. So again, weird for Godbeer. He obviously wants to get back in there.
Danny Henry.
Yeah, of course, Danny Henry. But hey, we don't want to talk about that again, do we? Hopefully. But yeah, UFC London turned out to be, a lot of people were moaning about this card, saying it's not going to be a great card, but it turned out to be an absolute banger of a card.
Yeah.
Banger.
Yeah,
but it was. As I always say, they mightn't be household names. When you find yourself in times of trouble, book the Echo Arena. There may be Bellator, but let it be. UFC Liverpool is booked and locked down for the 27th of May. 2 days, Robert. 2 days after Bellator 200. Couple of things. It was robbed from Dublin.
It was robbed. They stole it.
Not the first time a Scouser stole something.
I had to go there.
Right, no, come on, calm down. No, but UFC... Let's talk about it. Realistically, UFC are going to Dublin. When I heard the news...
Liverpool.
Not going to Dublin, going to Liverpool. When I heard the news, they tweeted out that, there's going to be a big announcement this day or whatever. And when I heard it, I wasn't too surprised.
Sure.
Couple of things. Number one,
I did expect Dublin. I was expecting Dublin to be announced.
I'm not surprised they've gone to Liverpool ahead of Dublin this time.
No, either. It makes more sense.
And the reason being is because Darren Till right now we were talking about Darren Till needs to get back in there. There's huge momentum behind him. There's huge steam behind him. Till needs to get back in there. Till wants to get back in there. And it looked like Liverpool wasn't going to happen, and now it is happening. Darren Till is a Scouser through and through. So the fact that he is now going to headline UFC Liverpool makes perfect sense. You're going to sell out Ireland no matter what. So this whole thing of, no, it's not that they're not worried about selling out Dublin. They'll sell out Dublin, no problem.
Easily.
But they're not going to sell Conor McGregor in Dublin anymore unless it was in Croke Park. And sure, we know what the residents are like.
Arena.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Viva.
Viva, right. But so they're not going to do Conor in number one, a fight night. They're not going to lose out in the pay-per-view of Conor in that, right? So I can understand there's no big, huge Irish superstar in the UFC right now. So UFC Liverpool makes perfect sense.
It makes way more sense, and I'd love the UFC to come back to Dublin ahead of Liverpool personally, because we'd be at the cover or
we're
at the
from
go
Dublin.
or whatever. But it makes way more sense to do Liverpool, and I think it'd be a mistake not to do Liverpool with Darren Till right now.
Well, the iron's hot, yeah.
Exactly, and without the risk of comparing him to Conor, but looking at what holding a UFC event in Dublin did for Conor. You can see exactly what they're looking at. They're looking at Till. They're going to say, he's on the trajectory. Let's put a card in Liverpool. If he gets a big win there, he's going to come off like an absolute superstar. He's already a superstar. And he's probably, like, right now, maybe he's a little bit more famous than Conor was when he done the Dublin card the first time. Possibly. It could be on a similar level. The idea is the same. But the idea is the same. Is that put him in his hometown, let him come off as a superstar. It makes complete sense, and I love the idea.
And like, without sounding poor, if Darren Till was to lose his next fight and then they try to do UFC Liverpool, it's not going to have the same pop.
No.
Like, you only have to look at Cage Warriors in Liverpool, the Echo with Paddy Pimblett, and the cards that go on in the Echo are absolutely unbelievable. They're off the charge. If you have not watched Paddy Pimblett, the atmosphere of him coming out, he was on MMA Hour yesterday with Ariel Helwani, and even Ariel, when he walked into the studio, Ariel was playing his walkout music.
Yeah.
To walk Paddy Pimblett.
He made it like a big deal in a way.
Yeah. And see, I think Ariel thought he was going to get the big exclusive of Paddy Pimblett. He's going to fight in UFC Liverpool. He's like, I'm on holiday, mate. Yeah, in Mexico.
Yeah, decent version.
So it's
we can talk about that. Let's stick on the Darren Till thing just for now. Then we'll move on to the potential other fighters that could get onto the card, because there's probably loads there, especially local fighters, but also maybe a couple of Irish related, Gunnar Nelson maybe. But Darren Till, who should he fight next? Because Leon Edwards won a fight at UFC London, called him out. There's not many people or many fighters lining up to fight Darren Till. Gunny called him out. But then you have the likes of Kobe Covington is there. Of course, Darren Till was pushing for the Stephen Thompson fight when he was on with us. He was calling for that fight. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. For you right now, based on all the kind of different fighters we have and the different stories, different reports of who's fit, who wants to fight. I know Jorge Masvidal said he'd fight him, but he also said he'd fight him in June or July. He said that he's doing stuff before that, so that's not going to happen. So who stands out to you right now? Who's the right fight? What's the right fight?
The right fight, or who?
For you, what's the perfect matchup for you, regardless of who you think you'll fight?
To sell UFC Liverpool, I think the best person to put him in there is against Mike Perry.
Yeah.
I think it would be promotional dream. It's going to sell out. The show's sold out already. Darren Till is the main event. The show is sold out already.
So you think this is the best for business?
Best business, so. Darren Till, Perry. Perry's on a 2-fight loss streak.
See, that's the problem.
Only problem.
Yeah.
He's not going to fight Wonderboy. Wonderboy is not going to take a fight against Darren Till in Liverpool.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the fight.
Really?
Yes, that.
Interesting. What about Gunnar?
I think Gunnar will take it. Gunnar said he'd do it.
And what makes Mike Perry a better fight than Gunnar Nelson?
Because I just think...
The story-wise?
Yeah, I just think the promotion of it, the shit talk. Perry needs a win. He'll be desperate. He'll get emotional. He'll get attached. It'll be a crazy fight. It'll be a fight that, you know, they're going to stand and absolutely throw, and it could be magic.
Yeah. I think you can look at it from two angles on that one. I think if you were looking at it from the angle of if he fights Mike Perry, that's going to sell more tickets. It's going to get people more enthused about the fight. It's going to get people more hyped.
No, I don't.
That's not really needed.
What you're saying. No, it's not needed.
No, that's not really needed. But that still stands. That's a fact. That's going to happen. If you fight someone like Gunnar Nelson, maybe the trash talk won't be there, and maybe you know, you're not going to get as much hype. Although you'll get hype from especially the hardcore fans who say Gunnar Nelson's a legit threat to Darren Till, but you're not going to get the trash talk. You're not going to get all that the show business part of it. But then, that's also not needed either, I don't think, for Darren Till in Liverpool. You look at Conor McGregor in Dublin. He fought Diego Brandao, somebody who can't speak English very well, somebody who, at the time, was a little bit of a threat in the division, but wasn't...
Conor would carry the whole...
But so could Darren Till. That's the point. Darren Till could carry that Liverpool card on his own.
Ponzinibbio could be the fight.
The perfect underline for Darren Till being able to carry this card on his own, it's all they had to do was say Darren Till is fighting somebody in Liverpool, and everybody was like, oh my god, this is amazing. Somebody. Now put an actual real person in there. He's fighting the dreaded black outline on UFC.com right now. The nobody. He's fighting a broom. But if I just love that one. He's fighting a broom. But put him in there against pretty much anybody, and he's going to sell it out. So you have them two things where you can say he can fight a really good competitive fight versus Gunnar Nelson, and not that Perry isn't, but he can fight the guy on a losing streak, but probably there's going to be more entertainment in terms of trash talk.
Loss.
That's true.
So,
bit of a weird loss.
Ponzinibbio could be the fight.
I was just seeing an MMA junkie poll, and 47% are picking Colby Covington to face Darren Till.
See, again, I think
trash talk wise.
Yeah,
that could be good.
I know. Yeah,
not that he's great at trash talk.
I just think in some ways, if this was Darren, we're just talking about Darren Till's next fight and it was in Vegas or New York or whatever, the Colby Covington fight probably happens. But the fact it's in Liverpool,
yeah,
I don't know. I think they want somebody that will stand with him,
possibly,
and have that. So I think Ponzinibbio could be a. When you asked me who do I, when you said who do I think Perry would be great for. I just think it'd be madness. Yeah. The fact they have the promo was there in itself. Darren Till beats Cowboy and Perry's up against the cage screaming obscenities at him. You know what I mean? That was epic.
Yeah, I get that. I just disagree with it because 2-fight losing streak. I don't think it's the best.
If you ask me who I think should happen, it should be somebody on a winning streak, like Colby Covington, like
what about Leon Edwards? Leon Edwards called him out. I don't think there's a lot of fanfare behind that one for obvious reasons. Leon Edwards is an excellent fighter. It's a really good fight. It's a really good competitive fight in my opinion.
I think it'd be huge in UK European scene, but a lot of the Americans might lose. Like you got to remember, and this Leon Edwards is an absolute animal. But I mean, for the American audience, they want to see Darren Till. He just beat Cowboy Cerrone, for God's sake.
I get that.
Cowboy is one of the stars on the flag, like at this stage. You know what I mean? So I think, they have to put him in against somebody that's recognisable across the world. I'm not saying Leon's not. I just think I just think they'll want Till fighting somebody higher up, I think, in the rankings.
Possibly.
Like Till spoke about, and we've spoke to numerous fighters about, it's hard to get somebody up the rankings to fight someone down the rankings. I just think Mike Perry and Till have something personal, so that's why that could happen. Covington, I don't think it'll happen in American fighting, just coming and fighting in Liverpool. You never know, it might happen. But Ponzinibbio could be the guy. But in line with what you said with Conor and Brandao not able to speak great English, didn't need to be, man. It was Conor McGregor, and in a way, Darren Till. You look at Darren, when Darren comes on here, Darren Till sells the fight himself. Man.
At the end of the day, it's going to be the Darren Till show, so it doesn't really matter who he goes against in a sense. It does, but it doesn't.
Right, we're running along.
But let's move on. Paddy Pimblett. Paddy Pimblett is not going to be on the card. He announced.
Were you convinced?
I thought he was going to be on it. Yeah, I thought he was going to be on it. Do I like the idea that he's not on it? Kind of. I think Paddy Pimblett is at the level now that he can compete on the prelim card with a lot of those guys. But I still think that if he stays outside the UFC for a little bit longer, does a bit more work.
Does what Dukeman done with Bama.
I think he'll have a better long run in the UFC or Bellator, wherever he goes. So.
And Paddy was saying, he doesn't need the UFC need me. Like, he has paved the way for Liverpool as well. Like, I guarantee you, the UFC now with Cage Warriors on Fight Pass, they're seeing what Liverpool is like. Liverpool is very similar to what Dublin events are like. The crowd are in frenzy, getting behind all the fighters, just loving it. The echo will be jammed from the first fight to the last fight. I think it's great for Liverpool. The UK MMA, I think it's great as well. I like seeing the UK, they went to Manchester with Bisbing. They've obviously been to London only this week, so it's good to see them stretching out to other cities in England. There are other cities, and I think it'll be huge and be great for MMA in the UK. And Darren Till in Liverpool, that's going to be something special, man. Yeah.
Is there anybody else who could get on the card? I know a lot of people are talking about Molly McCann. I'd like to see that Cage Warriors champion. The women's division, the flyweight division, isn't, I suppose, the most stacked division in the world. So I don't think, even though she's only 7-0, there's a lot of girls in that division that I think she can compete with very well.
So, I think the UFC are going to do what the UFC do. They're going to sign
very weird division
locals as well, and up and comers. They tend to do that. You look right back throughout UFC's history when they first came here, UFC 93 and stuff. You know what I mean? They do sign local talent. So it wouldn't surprise me if you got a lot of local fighters. It doesn't necessarily have to be just Liverpudlians.
Yeah, like you could have, you never know. Like there's a lot of people calling for Paul Redmond when it was supposed to be Dublin.
Yeah.
It's only across the pond. You could never know. Yeah. A lot of people calling for Chris Fishgold.
It wouldn't surprise me if the likes of maybe a little bit too early, but for Fabian Edwards could be a shout.
Possibly. I'd like, again, he's another guy I'd like to see stay, but I think Fishgold is probably. You never know. I think Fishgold is probably
Yeah.
the one that stands out. Like, he's 16-1, so you know, he
It's
has
like
plenty
if
of
you
fights.
look at where Cage Warriors is at the moment, it would have been like when you look at the New Year's show in Cage Warriors done in the Helix here not too long ago. You had Conor, or you'd like say you've Conor was a Cage Warriors champion. You have Chris Fields, you've got Pendred, you've Neil Seery. You know what I mean? These all went on to be UFC. So I think the Liverpool fighters that are fighting in Cage Warriors right now, they're like almost like Air Busby babes, you know what I mean? Like they like the names I mentioned: Fields, Connor, Cahill, Ash. You know what I mean? These were early first ones through the door, and I think that's going to be the same for the current champions of Cage Warriors that they're on the threshold of signing for UFC Liverpool. We are not saying he's the best. We're just saying there's nobody better. Brendan Dorman is back on OFT. Brendan, I miss your face.
What up, fellas?
How are you?
What's up, man?
I'm doing well. Post St. Patty's.
Yeah.
Let's rock.
The hangovers are illuminating. We're going to do something different with Brendan. We normally bring Brendan on to talk about fights that have happened or are about to happen. But we're going to do reading Reddit this week with Brendan involved, because there's a couple of posts that are interesting. And the one that Rob pointed out and we want to dive into is the rate of submission victories in the UFC from 93 up till today, and how different it is.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on the screen now, and you'll see that the rate has dropped significantly. So we're going to talk about why that is and just bits and pieces about that topic.
Yeah, okay. So, Brendan, I think in a way it's an obvious question in some ways, the early days to now, why submissions maybe not as effective. But, you know, we let you answer that. Why is there not as many submissions today as there was in the early days in mixed martial arts and UFC in particular?
I would assume the obvious would be it's not, jiu-jitsu's not new at this point, right?
Yeah.
So the really early days, if you go back to the mid 90s or whatever, or even late 90s, someone like Hoist Gracie, or I guess you could use any of the Gracies, Hickson for Pride 1. A lot of that stuff was new. Sakuraba kind of threw a wrench in those spokes in a way that, like, say, Ferguson is now. Like, they're getting submissions, but not in the atypical way, take you down, pass your guard, submit you. The thing that I was thinking of, too, is that two things are kind of new. And one is submission only. That's relatively new as far as grappling tournaments. And the other thing is where the innovation has come from in that realm, right? So a lot of things like De La Hiva, if you know who the Miao brothers are, Berimbolo, like a lot of like ankle lock things, and, you know, basically like people locked in 50-50. None of that stuff, I mean, some of it can absolutely work in MMA in the right context, but it's tough to pull off. Yeah. And in these submission only tournaments, which are progressive, and I think they're a step in the right direction. As far as grappling, there's still no strikes. So to go inverted and things like this, where people are getting submissions and said, you know, EBI rules, let's say, you know, and I know he's trying to do like what is he calling it, combat jiu-jitsu or something? Where they can do like palm strikes. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I didn't watch it, so I don't know if it's goofy in practice, but it's good in theory, you know. I think that's a lot of it, and I think people are kind of more savvy to submission now. And there just hasn't been a whole lot of innovation since, you know, the inception of the UFC as far as like what submissions, right? Yeah. So like Ferguson, for instance, from scrambles lands Darces. Jeff Glover was doing that in submission grappling or whatever, just grappling in general in 2006. You know, it's not new. It's maybe new in context. But like the whole Danaher Death Squad, and obviously I'm a fan and friends with those guys and all that, but a lot of that stuff's not really going to translate, you know? Even someone like the great, you guys know Marcelo Garcia, I assume?
Of course, yeah.
He's probably the best pound-for-pound submission artist ever in grappling. Yeah. And he did one MMA fight, and he was out. So sometimes with the gloves, without the gloves, might change it. There's so many X factors. But I also think takedown defense has gotten better. Yeah. And you've seen the rise of the super athlete, and some of them come from wrestling. Yeah. Tyron Woodley's a good example. When I was looking at some of those stats that I tried to send you, I guess the link was broken about like takedown defense. Tyron Woodley's like 97% or so. It's insanity, whatever it is. We saw it with Maya, you know.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to look at the actual graph, because I think one of the lower parts, apart from now where it's getting even more lower, and I think that's probably just because, as you said, so many fighters are getting so much better at defending takedowns, so the fights just don't hit the floor as much, so there's obviously less of a chance of a submission. But if you look at where there's kind of a dip, like a real dip, it's like mid-90s, well, not mid-90s because whatever, but between 1995 and 2000, and that's kind of the rise of the wrestle boxer almost. So you'd have the crazy super athletic wrestlers who just wouldn't be taken down, and if they were, they got really savvy at defending takedowns from the guard, or defending submissions from the guard.
Sure. Randleman, Coleman, Randy Couture a little later, and then Liddell, right? So yeah, absolutely, that's a good point. Yeah. And if you can consider the era, and Chuck, you figure Chuck's prime years were what, early 2000s? Ish. Yeah. You know, and that was all about sprawl and brawl, and no one really uses that term anymore. But there was a guy who understood wrestling, and he used it to keep it standing. Kind of like Aldo was a really good jiu-jitsu practitioner and use that to have fantastic takedown defense, you know. Woodley, much the same, you know. So I think that's part of it. But I think people have, you know, I think the submission grappling element and what people are using in jiu-jitsu versus in MMA and gloves and all of those things, I think all of those are factors to consider. I don't think it's an absolute anything, you know. I think it's fascinating to me
as well. We had the new breed, well, we're talking about Liddell, but even when you still looked at like the Liddell era, I think there was a lot of fighters that were, you know, still one style of fighter that was doing a bit of jiu-jitsu or had a bit of wrestling in the back pocket. While when you start getting into, like, I always famously remember that they sort of really pushed Rory McDonald as the first real mixed martial artist. He didn't train jiu-jitsu or come from a taekwondo background. This guy just trained mixed martial arts. So I think that it's almost the most obvious point to say that when this sport came together, it was different. It was almost like Anchorman, you know. It was like Channel 5 would come along and go, hey, we want a piece of this action, and that's jiu-jitsu. And then, like, you know, the Spanish channel would come, and that was like boxers, or, you know what I mean? And that's almost like how MMA came. Everybody came into this meeting point, but now it's evolved. One of the couple of interesting things I found, though, throughout, just looking here, it's an article. It is an old article, but I can use it because I'm talking about the early days. In the first 7 years of UFC, the most used submission, if you had to throw a guess at what was the most successful submission, Brendan, what would your shout be?
Armbar.
Ooh, armbar is just second by 1% or one submission.
Triangle choke?
No, the number one at the time was a rear naked choke. Yeah, rear naked. Okay. And that's sort of...
I figured because of the way you asked it, I wanted to go a little. Rear naked makes the most sense, though.
But like armbar and rear naked choke seem to be side by side when you go down through the years. So rear naked choke at the time was 24%, and then 25% moving on from up to 05. But rear naked predominantly took over. In 2006, the rear naked choke was 37% of all submissions. Which is you know, it's a large number. Yeah. But then this is where I start meaning like we involved a lot more then. But at the same time, the evolution of this sport, the number one was the rear naked choke still. The biggest year to defeat it was 2009, where the guillotine had the most success outside of the rear naked choke. Now there's another section that just says other, and that's everything from anacondas to darts to key locks to knee bars. But predominantly the rear naked choke has been number one for the longevity of the sport.
There's a reason for that, I think.
Yeah.
Like do you guys know how to apply a rear naked choke? Yeah. I mean, how many setups do I have? I don't know. I can't count them. But arm bars, you know, I don't love arm bars. And the thing is if you're in mount in today's game, with the way it's scored and everything, you're almost better to strike than to try to arm bar, even from full mount. You don't see people laying out for arm bars. They'll try them from the ground off their back, you know, or they're throwing up their hips, but never from a top position. And that's kind of fascinating too, because a lot of what Hoist was doing was that he was submitting people off his back with triangle setups and stuff, and people didn't know how to even defend arm bars or triangles at all really back then. Nowadays you see everyone they know hitchhiker escapes, etc. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, just on the rear naked choke as well. If you watch somebody who's very inexperienced in grappling, the first thing they'll do when somebody is grappling them is to turn away from them and try get away. And if you watch the early MMA fights, the early UFC fights, a lot of it's somebody trying to pull away, trying to get away, and the first thing they think of in their head when they're inexperienced is, let me get away from this guy, I'm going to turn around, and then it takes the back. We did find this on Reddit. You can see on the corner, up in the corner.
Just before you move on. Sorry, moving
go
on.
ahead.
The question then, Brendan, and I know this is a weird one because you're going to, in a way, I'm asking you to, I'm not asking you to take away some of the victories or some of the submissions, but clearly, an obvious question or an obvious answer for me then, it's a lot more impressive if a guy of today gets a submission over a guy of today as Hoist Gracie tapping somebody out back in 93, 94.
Of course. Of course.
And
because everyone's privy to it. Like when you saw Damian Maia, when he did it to Condit, you were like, whoa. Yeah. Because Condit's very ground savvy. Yeah. It's kind of like, who have you done it against? Yeah. You know what I mean? All of that counts.
But what I like about it as well now is when you look at a fight just happened a couple of weeks ago and the whole crowd jumped and got excited when Ortega got a hold of Edgar's neck. Yeah. And it was still like, oh shit, and that was still like, oh, here we go. So I love that it's still there, but I don't want to take away from what obviously Hoist Gracie done for mixed martial arts and jiu-jitsu as a whole.
I didn't even take it that way.
But I think it's more impressive now. If you get it like an incredible submission in this era of MMA, it's a lot more impressive than it was 15 years ago.
Well, it's like me tapping a white belt versus me tapping a purple belt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a first day person. I mean, they're annoying in a way because they don't like. It's the video game analogy we use, right? Yeah. They're just pressing all the buttons and going crazy. And you're like, Jesus Christ, can you relax a little? I gotta set this up.
My point.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, as soon as they have a stripe or two on their white belt, then they at least know some defense, and it's everything's progressive.
Yeah, I find as well, I don't know, I think striking, from what we've seen, striking is, I think getting offensive and becoming better offensively, striking, I think is easier than being defensively sound in grappling. Like, I think it's easier to defend a takedown than it is to get really proficient at getting takedowns or getting submissions, where I think, like, working on defending takedowns, working on defending submissions is a little bit easier, in my opinion. That's how I felt anyway.
Sure.
So I misunderstood it. It's easier to practice defense than offense. Is that what
in grappling, I feel it. Okay. Yeah, but in striking, I think a lot of people get better offensively than defensively quicker.
Yeah. Well, I think that's because
I think there's a reason for that, because when you spar in grappling, it's kind of day one, right? But in striking, if you have a good striking coach, and if in any of my experience as a coach, like, it's always like kind of pad work, shadow boxing, bag work, light sparring. Like, there's a wicked progression to your striking before it's even live, let alone with takedowns involved. That's the last step, So you're not even really striking a opponent that's coming back at you until, you're well along, I guess. Yeah. Whereas jiu-jitsu day one, you're live sparring.
Yeah, exactly. Just from Reddit, I'm going to read out a couple of comments because there's some interesting ones here. Along with this graph, there was another graph which showed the decline in other methods of, say, like in knockouts or in decisions. And what the graph showed was that there was a decline in submissions, but there was an increase mostly in decisions. Somebody said here, seeing that the TKO, KO have trended fairly flat, it's clear that it's the decision victories that have eaten away at submissions. This makes sense in the context of sport, as the average level of wrestling BJJ skill has gone up, and even strikers have at least introduced some submission defense into their training. So that's interesting that we see that decisions are the biggest mover. So it seems like a lot more people are winning decisions, and then the submissions are going down, which makes sense.
Well, yeah, in a way as well, though. Like, that's almost it almost complements what we're saying about people have learned to stop these takedowns. So now the skill sets are more, again, the video game analogy. or a trump card. Remember trump cards?
Yeah.
It's like you know, my score might have been like 20 back in the early days, but now I'm on par with you, like 70, 75. So if I'm efficient enough in being able to stop your takedown, that's probably the grappler's way of winning the fight. So if I become proficient in stopping it,
instead of getting,
you might beat me if you've out-grappled me for the 15 minutes of the fight, but I might be proficient enough to stop you submitting me. So yeah, that seems to make sense.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, you referenced like Rory before. I always think of, and he didn't start in MMA the same, but his teammate George was kind of the first completely well-rounded guy.
Yeah.
When especially when his wrestling became his wrestling, right? Because Matt Hughes couldn't get him down. Josh Koscheck, no one could get the guy down, but he could take you down at will and jab your face off, right? So his striking was good, and his background was in karate. You know, he was a Kyokushin black belt before, I think, when he was young, and he learned wrestling, which is just incredible. And I'm not going to go on a tangent with that, but Rory, and now you see it with DJ. Even I mentioned Condit earlier. There's so many, TJ Dillashaw. All these guys are rounded. You know what I mean? They can do anything, really. That's the new game. Minus like maybe heavyweight. Most people can kind of do everything pretty well, and maybe have one thing that kind of stands out. There's only a few specialists left.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I think one of the early ones that was very well rounded as well was Nick Diaz.
Yeah.
Like Nick Diaz.
Yeah.
Super,
but no wrestling.
Yeah, super jits game.
Yeah.
And like he could stand and bang, and I love this pop style of striking. But yeah, Nick Diaz.
Great to watch. Just no takedowns. No American style wrestling. You know.
Yeah. I have two interesting comments here, which kind of reflect each other. So WFD said strikers have a huge advantage because they have gloves and wraps to protect their hands. They can throw strikes against the head as hard as they can. There was an article several years ago which said the KO ratio skyrocketed after fighters started to use gloves. And then just leading on from that one, whereas gloves make grappling harder, it would be interesting to see how different some fights would be without the gloves. Especially BJJ would probably be a lot more effective, you'd think. Makes sense. Grappling does make it. The gloves do make grappling a little bit harder to get chokes and to get certain submissions.
Like for the what the hell's going on there now? But for me, the gloves, like 4 ounce, yes, they protect, but you're not gonna, like, you look at the amount of fighters that have injured their hands, like broke their hands.
But you still punches hard.
No, there is, but the 4 ounce gloves aren't as forgiving, you'd say, as the bigger boxing gloves.
But they're still very forgiving
compared to nothing.
The one thing I always say though.
No, I gotta interject a little bit. Your hands are wrapped. It's not about the glove. It's about your hand being sturdy. So when you punch something hard, let's say someone goes to slip a punch and they bob in and you hit their forehead, right? Your hand is gonna go like this. And you're gonna hyperextend here. It's not about your breaking your hand as much as it is you'll throw with reckless abandon because your hand's wrapped. Think of it that way.
But even just the pain, like I always say to people, like, to see how much a glove protects a hand, or even a wrap or whatever, is punch a wall just slightly without a glove and then punch it with a glove. You're not going to punch it a second time without a glove, but you will with the glove. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's a great point. And then gloves are just in the way. Like, think of like if someone's tucking their chin and you're trying to slide through, but all of a sudden you have all this like extra padding now over it. Like, that's a lot harder to kind of pry someone up. You know?
Even like wrist control and stuff. Like wrist, like you're not allowed to pull the glove, but you're allowed to hold the wrist, and the glove is there.
A fight we spoke about, regional fight here, Brendan. I want you to watch this guy's jiu-jitsu game. He's only a young kid out of here. I'll send you a link for it. Lee Hammond. But Lee was fighting Jack Monaghan out of Cork, and at one stage it was happening right in front of me, and Lee all but had the choke wrapped up, but his hand was, like, because of the glove, what we're talking about, his glove was sort of stuck in between his arm and his body, and
it's clamped.
So his hand would he ended up getting the choke and getting the hand out. I think I explaining as he's slithering his hand out, but if that glove wasn't there, his hand just comes through and just locks up the choke. But remind me after this to send you Lee Hammond, because I think you will be ultra impressed with his jiu-jitsu. Phenomenal. Only a young kid.
I love watching good jiu-jitsu. It's beautiful.
So,
like, think about this, guys. When you watch jiu-jitsu on, if you watch like a Marcelo in his studio, or like if Renzo doesn't show as many live rolls from his place, but any type of jiu-jitsu competition, right? When you see someone lock up a rear naked, it's usually full scissor. But a lot of times in MMA, you're seeing like one hand's around and they're just fighting to get this hand clamped to it. And you'll see them just go palm to palm and kind of get everything from there, rather than slicing, you know, and getting real deep on it because of the glove. It's not, you only have to watch both to understand that. There's a reason, because someone can keep grabbing at the thing, you know?
So the
that makes
question
perfect
is,
sense to me.
The question is with this, we move on to something else on Reddit then, Rob, unless you have other comments. But the question with this is, so we've noticed, because of the skill factors, we find that it's sort of quite obvious that fighters are more equal than skilled, so they may not be as good at offensively stop or getting submissions, but they've certainly got a lot stronger defensively. Will that decline in subs keep going, or have we reached a level where the masters like your Ortegas, your Damian Moyes, your Demetrius Johnson, who have all this, like Gunny Nelson, these guys, will that still keep a playing field, or a certain, like, will that graph at the moment stay on the line it's at, or will we see that lower again?
Based on the trend line,
I think because submission grappling is still kind of relatively new, especially like the EBI rules. I think we can see it increase. We could see, I could see a reason for both. You know, it's really hard to say. Because it's like, remember when I was explaining that for a knockout artist, sometimes I think we were talking about Ngannou, and I kind of mentioned like a DC or a Khabib or something like that. It's harder to do that. It's harder for Damian Maia to implement his game than Ngannou. Ngannou's just waiting for an opening. Maybe not even. He might hit you when you're blocked up, and he might put you into, onto one of Saturn's fucking rings. But a submission artist has got to work, and throughout that work, Woodley Maia being a good example, you're not winning any points. You're not scoring at all. So, I can see it declining for that reason. But because there's more submission grappling, just more people doing jiu-jitsu, I think, in general, you might see an increase too. Both are possible. I'd probably go with the decline, though. As
an add-on to that question, do you think we've seen the last of some submissions? You sort of said armbar, that people aren't going to take that risk from a mounted position to spin into an armbar. Like, I know he'll kill me for saying this, but Chris Fields, an Irish fighter, notoriously said on a show that nobody gets triangle from guard anymore. That doesn't happen in MMA. His very next fight, a couple of weeks later, he got triangle from the guard. Now you've seen Paul Craig throw up a triangle from guard just this past weekend with the home run. Left, but do you see a decline in a certain submission? Like, do you think we've seen the last of? Is there a move that if you get caught now, it's like, man, I can't believe you got caught in that?
No, because Ferguson hit Lee with a nice triangle, and he set it up differently, and that was the whole trick. I don't know if you saw my breakdown of that, but there's something that he did that's like just a minor tweak, and it's kind of a hat tip to Eddie Bravo, really. Like he looks at jiu-jitsu like, I probably look at striking. You know what I mean? It's not that I'm incompetent. I'm certainly competent completely, but there's some people that are just so innovative. Like what John Danaher knows about jiu-jitsu, or Renzo or someone. That is 1,000. It's 1,000 times what I know. It's not even close. And it'll just be different setups. Like people don't use arm drags, for example, in MMA, but there's a reason, because you're dropping your hands. So where that's really effective for, say, Marcel Garcia in a grappling context, it's not going to be, in an MMA context. So you don't see like Americanas a lot, or did you say key lock for it earlier? It's the same submission, just different nomenclature. But you don't see many of those. But that could be gloves again, because you got to sneak one under, But no, I don't. Because Darces are coming. You see a lot of Darces now.
Guillotines from
Triangles
guard.
from the back. You still see them.
Guillotines from guard, I find you don't get them an awful lot. Like, you get guys getting them standing and pulling guard, but like actual guillotines from guard where they're in guard and you just pull a guillotine, it's very rare. Very rare, because they're hard to do from guard. Very, very hard. It's one thing, like from a closed guard anyway. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of people try Armins, and most people do them wrong. I happen to learn it from the guy that kind of, I don't want to say invented it, but at least made it prominent in Renzo. And there's tweaks to that
arm guillotines are very hard to pull off. Yeah. So that's part of it. No one really goes high elbow. If they were doing that, I mean, you don't even need a full guard to push their hips down, because it's a spine crank at that point. And by raising your elbow, you're blocking their trapezius from, going around you for like a Von Flu,
We'll just do one more on Reddit. I found this one. This just popped up. It's a picture of the UFC rankings. The title is, after being briefly removed from the UFC rankings, Cub Swanson is now back in them. Contract problems resolved? ?
Yeah, that was weird, wasn't he? He was out of contract. I think they do that though, don't they? When you're out of contract,
he removed from the rankings, yeah. But now he's back in.
So GSP was 2 after his fight, and then he said he was like whatever he's doing, and he dropped to like 11. Yeah. And Connor's still 2.
Well, the rankings don't mean anything.
The rankings are fucking horseshit, is my point.
But the point is, horseshit. Generally when they remove someone or when they add someone back, that usually means some kind of either coming back or they're.
That's what happened, wasn't it, with Brock? Remember, Brock all of a sudden just appeared in the rankings, like, oh my God, Brock is back. But,
I'd like to see Cub Swanson back in the UFC.
Yeah, I'm glad. Like he's a stalwart of the UFC, and he's
always entertaining, man.
Yeah,
every fight.
Yeah, great fighter. Comes to fight, goes out in his shield. And let's be honest, he hasn't really lost a fight to where you go, what, he lost that fight? Do you know what I mean? He's always... And when he goes out, like the Ortega fight was just like, nobody was getting out of that. Was like a bear trap of a submission, talking about submissions. But
that was magical.
But yeah, I'm glad. I'm a big Cub fan.
Me too.
Yeah.
So
it's hard not to root for a guy like that. So I love creative grappling, creative striking. He's so creative striking. He's fun. He goes out, like you said, he goes out in his shield too. He's a tough guy. How do you not kind of root for that guy?
Yeah.
Quick one, just before we let you go, Brendan. Francis Ngannou believes criticism of his wrestling and cardio are overblown. What do you think of that one?
By whom? He was gassed in the second fucking round.
Yeah. Did you watch the MMA hour?
I wouldn't say it to his face.
Yeah.
Maybe from across the room. Ngannou!
Yeah.
You suck!
No, he'd catch me.
Yeah.
I'd be, I don't say I had a bat. Even then, probably not.
Yeah.
I like him though, but he's out of his mind. That's ridiculous. You were gassed in the second round, dude.
Yeah, he was talking on the MMA hour last night and said that the biggest problem was that he flew over to Paris a bit too close to the fight and then flew back. But like, I understand that can definitely affect you, but I don't think that's the big effect on what we saw.
He was trying to take Stipe's head off in the first few rounds.
He was jumping with,
but he also said,
to
be fair, he also said that he didn't follow his game plan. He was supposed to pace himself in the first round. He said that he just went against game plan and.
It's called out Brock, hasn't he?
Like I said, 2 days later when I was on.
Yeah.
It's like he came out way, way, way too hot.
Yeah.
You gotta pick your spots,
He's called out Brock though. He said he wants Brock.
Brock, yeah.
That's the worst thing you could do.
Yeah, of all the fighters in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, when Derek Lewis is calling
Brock's
or
so
Kane.
terrifyingly athletically strong. He's Ngannou with grappling. Mark Hunt has fantastic takedown defense, and he stopped 3 of Brock's by grabbing the cage.
Yeah,
Brock was shooting from like 15 feet away.
Yeah.
I mean,
wasn't even in the cage with him.
Brock's striking looks a little goofy for sure.
Yeah,
but his fucking takedowns, man, you're not getting up.
No.
And he's going to be, it's not the way Stipe was, quarter Nelson, and he's not going to wear you down. He's going to smash your face off.
Yeah,
That's a terrible idea. Yeah. I understand it from a financial perspective,
but a good call out, because here we are.
Exactly.
So the right call out. Hey, let's call out a guy who's not even assigned to the promotion.
Before we leave you, Brendan, there's a trio there. So you have Ngannou, and then you have Lewis, Hunt. And Lesnar. What's the right matchup for Ngannou?
I like to see Ngannou and Derek Lewis. That's been brewing for like a year.
I agree.
It just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And there's been it seems like some legitimate shit talking back and forth. Yeah. Brock doesn't. I met Brock once, and he's terrifying in person. Absolutely terrifying. He doesn't look real. Like, he doesn't look like a real human. He's not real. His shoulders are like, I'm not a small dude, and I don't know. He's just a different Viking or something, Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's terrifying, and I don't know if he's even coming back, for one, and for two, I don't think you give Ngannou one of the best wrestlers ever in the heavyweight division.
No.
That's craziness. No. After that was his biggest weakness. You know?
We think Derek Lewis is the right call.
I think so. If you want to make Ngannou a contender again, I think you have to give him someone manageable in that way. Not that he can't beat Lesnar. You can finish him in the first round.
Yeah, I think Lewis has to happen because of what they're having. But
it makes sense.
Mark Hunt saying, "Look, nobody wants to fight you. I'll fight you." Yeah. That'd be a fun fight too.
It'd be fun as well. Yeah,
Think of Lesnar, Mir on the ground, and Mir's probably the best submission artist in the heavyweight division. Him and Verdum, Nogueira, those three, right? Best ever. And the first fight, but the second fight, he was trying. Brock was like, punched his face into oblivion, you know? And then what's he gonna do off his back? Nothing.
Then drank
There's no way.
Coors Light, because Bud Light or is it the other way around? Bud Light aren't paying me.
I'm gonna have a Coors. He said it all like.
I'm gonna have a Coors, and I might even climb up on the wife.
Weird.
Why did you sound like?
Lay on my wife.
I'm doing Fargo. Yeah, because he's from Minnesota. Oh yeah, that's the Minnesota.
He's good for the sport, man. He brings people in.
Yeah.
That was reading MMA Reddit with Brendan Dorman. A little different this week, Brendan, but let's do things different. I can't wait to start talking Ferguson Khabib with you. It's going to be fun. Oh, but Dorman, it's a pleasure as always speaking to my friends. Belated Paddy's Day to you, and we'll talk again soon. And I will send you on the footage of young Lee Hammond.
Okay, brother. All right. Sounds good.
Peace. Cheers, man. Take care.
All right. Cheers, guys.
There you go. Not saying he's the best. Just saying there's nobody better, Rob. And it's at this point of the show, Rob, where I look at you with that confused face, and I say, Rob, what's up next?
I sent you what's next. Go find it, because I forget as well.
No. Oh,
what?
This was the last item on the show, so thanks for listening.
It's still bright.
It's still
what a
bright.
Short show.
It's almost like we only started 36 minutes ago. But this has been obviously Fight Talk episode 106. That was Mr. Dorman. But
are you... Continue. Just close the show.
Yeah, we're going to have to close the show because I can't say off. We'd like to thank all our guests for joining us today.
If this doesn't happen, so if sometimes we have guests lined up and for some reason they fall out, not our fault, not their fault.
Yeah, just life.
Sometimes, just life.
Internet. So Danny Henry, thanks a million for coming on. It was great talking to you.
All that's getting cut out.
All that's getting cut out. So if Danny didn't get on to us, hey Danny, what's the story? But no, he did. It was a great interview. Lovely guy. Making a second appearance and obviously Fight Talk. Don't forget the fights happening this weekend. If you're local or if you're just going to watch them on your TV, get them into you. But Rob, it's been a pleasure. Fight Store, Fighter's Choice, everything you need under the two roofs.
Yeah.
MMAmix.com. They're obviously good. They're with us. OFT. And to feelsupreme.co.uk. Go check them out. I'm buying some mushroom energy stuff, Synergy or whatever it is.
Nice.
Shrooms.
Shroom energy.
It's because I was watching that Take Your Pills documentary on Netflix.
Oh, I was seeing that. Yeah, seeing the picture. I didn't watch it though.
Excellent.
Does it look good? Yeah. Is it good?
All about you American people taking Adderall.
Adderall, yeah.
Adderall.
Apparently all the kids are on them.
Oh, no. Everyone's on it.
Yeah, apparently all the kids are on them.
Focus, Rob.
Sounds like a good idea.
But the weird thing about it is I was watching it going, this is like an ad for Adderall. I want some.
Oh, so it was like almost positive the way they went.
No, but then they go, it's really bad for your liver and your kidneys and stuff like that. But yeah, people were getting A's when they could have been getting C's.
So if you watch half the documentary, you could be on board with Adderall.
Exactly. So obviously, Fight Talk episode 106 was brought to you by Adderall. But now this has been 106. Looking forward to the fights. Busy weekend ahead for me. 2 shows, 2 weekends, no days off. Nobody doesn't take days off.
They should give you a present and share the show for that. Terrible. If you got this far, just share it.
Yeah, you haven't got this far, so this is where we'd leave. If you've got this far, when our t-shirts are made, we're going to give away the first person to comment under this video that says... Give me something to say, Rob, because people always should off this.
I love Adderall.
I love Adderall. The first comment of I love Adderall on YouTube, when our t-shirts, our new t-shirts are with us, Fight Star, get on it. When our new t-shirts are with us, with a lady and a big lizard in a cage, Japanese MMA, when they are made, whoever comments saying I love Adderall will get a free t-shirt. That just shows, have you listened this far? If not, no t-shirts going out. This has been episode 106. Peace!